still a seller's market. It's just that you're selling to less people right now. So Hey, what's going on, everybody? Cory Fandel, Closing with Cory here, and I wanted to officially welcome each and every one to my new podcast, the Closing with Cory Podcast. I kind of wanted to start this first one off with leaving it a little bit open-ended, not really having too much of an agenda, more so just explaining what I'm hoping to do with this throughout the course of the next year, 2 years, 5 years, however long this hopefully grows into. So, number one, Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a happy and safe holiday season. And then going into 2023, I'm hoping the same thing, that everyone is just being able to get a little bit more settled in. And I know it's been a crazy couple of years, so just hoping that 2023 brings a little bit of more peace for everybody. My thesis statement, and I got my notes over here just to make sure that I don't go off of track too much, because, one of the things that I'm trying my best to do with this is to not include my perfectionist mentality into the podcast, because I have that, and I have that with my work when I'm working with clients, and I have that with my marketing and advertisements and everything that I do. So I'm trying not to have that mindset to where I'm like, this has to be absolutely perfect. So I'm going to mess up. I'm going to forget what I'm going to say. I'm going to have to look at my notes. I'm going to stumble over my words. I understand that, because especially if I'm going to be doing a podcast, it's going to be something that's going to happen over and over again. So I'm trying not to have it to where I have to do so many retakes and different edits and chop it up so much. So it's more just natural, and it's just more of a conversation rather than something that's so scripted, and I have to constantly be thinking about, what's the next thing I'm going to say, and I can't just be, in the moment talking about it, because I'm sure my mind's going to be going all different places. So my thesis statement, or the way that I have it on there where I'm explaining what this podcast is a multi-avenue informational roadmap for any real estate journey or destination. And kind of what that means is I just kind of just spiced it up a little bit, where I just want to have an open discussion and conversation on a lot of the things that I've been doing over the years, but just kind of put it more into a podcast format in order to just give as much information as I possibly can. And I'm going into my 7th year in real estate, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to do this as my full-time job for going on 7 years. I also know that 7 years compared to someone who's been doing it for 25 years is a huge difference. So I know that throughout this journey and just throughout my work in general, I'll be learning a lot. So I'm probably not going to get everything right, which is totally fine. And that's where I want to have that open discussion, whether it's an agent or whether it's a lender or attorneys or whatever the case may be, just to be able to feel free to reach out, feel free to comment, feel free to do whatever you want to do, because I would love other people's input into this, and buyers and sellers and investors and people that are renting right now, just on information that you guys will be able to find useful, and also information that would be good to have on a daily basis. I'm going to be doing these every Monday. So starting it off, what I'll probably be doing is I'm going to be doing, market updates and trends. And I know that it could be a little bit stale doing market updates every week, depending on what's going on that week. So I'll probably be doing like a monthly recap of how the real estate market for the New Jersey and Pennsylvania area, how that kind of went for that month, instead of just doing it every week, because there may not be a big jump or a big difference. Also, I'm focusing on New Jersey and Pennsylvania, but more specifically, I'm focusing on Bucks County, Somerset County, and Hunterdon County, because those are the 3 counties that I specialize in. Now, I've worked in, at this point, probably every county in New Jersey, which, I'm, again, very thankful for. But I also know that my areas of expertise, or my specialty areas, are the areas that I want to continue to focus on and continue to learn, because those are the areas that I work the most in. They're also the 3 counties that I've lived in. So I also want to make sure that whether I'm selling in that area, I know kind of the highlights of that area and a better way to sell it to buyers. And if I'm working with a buyer in that area, I'm able to at least be able to provide as much possible information, since I lived in all those areas. So that's going to be, the main gist of what each week is going to be. Some may be 5 minutes, some may be 10 minutes, some may be 20 minutes. I'm sure I'll be able to start getting into other conversations and details as these podcasts go on. the one segment that I'm going to be trying to do, whether it's going to be twice a month, 3 times a month, whatever the case is going to be called Just Close with Cory. I put a poll out a couple of weeks ago, and I appreciate everyone who voted. Just Close with Cory is going to be a little bit of a deeper dive into my transactions. And I realized over the course of the last 2 years, like I post these just closed postings or closed postings, whether I'm working with a buyer or a seller, and I try to fit in that whole experience within like one paragraph. And I started to realize that from like a early on, that there's so much more that has happened than just like what I'm trying to kind of condense into this one paragraph. And what I realized is that I was really doing an injustice to a lot of what had happened in that transaction, and what I learned and what my buyer learned or my seller learned. And a lot of people actually were reaching out just from those little miniature descriptions of what was going on. And even if it was like a buyer saying, hey, I just experienced something extremely similar. I had to beat out 25 offers, this or that. And then I also realized, when I went on to some of my listing appointments, that some of these sellers would bring up some of those postings and say, hey, I saw that you just posted about a buyer that, put an offer in, got accepted on your listing, and then they decided that they wanted to cancel out the contract and inspections. Like, how did you deal with that? What are some things that we can do to hopefully prevent that? And I mean, the quick answer to that one is that you can't really predict anything like that. But it showed me that there was definitely a conversation that was going to be made, whether it's with one person or 50 people that connected to what I was saying. I feel like it was very important for me to hopefully just be able to give as much information as I possibly can. So for this first episode, what I wanted to do was just give a little bit of a 2022 recap on the real estate market, because unless you are just not paying attention, it's been nothing less than crazy for these last 2+ years. And I think that it's gotten to a point now where things have slowed down to a sense. It needed to be more realistic. And I feel like from going into 2021 and then going into 2022 and all of 2021, it just set this unrealistic expectation for sellers, most importantly, and then also just it put this kind of cloud over like the buying portion of real estate, to where these buyers were very discouraged, and they were about to go into a transaction or about to go see a home, never even saw a home, and already thinking like, oh, I'm going to have to be, offering $95,000 to $100,000 over asking. I'm going to have to waive everything. I'm going to have to, let them know that I'll donate one of my kids if I need to, whatever the case may be. It was something to where it was just very, very exhausting for buyers. It was really exhausting for everybody. But as far as 2022, we started off on a very much on a high, kind of riding like that 2021 wave going into the new year. And people were like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen with rates. And for the most part, in the beginning of it, it just was a smooth sail into the new year. And you had a lot of people still looking to sell, and you had a lot of those buyers with that huge buying power of where the rates were still currently at. So we went into 2022, pretty much, like I said, pretty much on a high. And I got some stats and stuff on here, which is why I wanted to just at least bring this up. If you were a buyer, most likely for certain properties in certain areas, you were going to be paying over asking. And I feel like a way that they kind of weighed that possibility out was the fact that the rates were just so phenomenal that it just helped them. Yeah, I already said, as far as it being unrealistic on both ends, that's the one thing that kind of, I feel like that's the one thing that really needed to be corrected in this market. It's just that for a seller, I feel like if you weren't getting 25 offers on a home and presenting it to the sellers almost felt like it was a fail on what was going on. Or if they weren't getting, $75,000 over asking, and they were only getting, and I say only in a joking way, but if they were only getting $20,000 over asking, it was like, oh, well, we could get more from another person. And it just set this unrealistic tone to where it was like, no matter what, I can list it with whoever I want to. I'm going to have a line of people around the corner waiting to get into my open house, which for the most part is absolutely true. I worked with a lot of different agents that I've never met before, never even heard of before, and they got their license, 6 months prior. And it was one of those things to where it was great. It was great to be able to have that ability of what I called like the list it and leave it approach, to where all you got to do is take some pics, throw it up on the MLS. Hey, we have 50 showings over the weekend. And that has kind of changed a little bit going into 2023. Average prices from 2021 to 2022 in the New Jersey and Pennsylvania area went up 14%. So that right there goes to show you that for the most part, whatever the median value of homes were, and with how many homes were closing over asking price, that rose up the values of homes significantly, which was 14%. Now, funny enough, for year to date for both New Jersey and Pennsylvania going into the end of 2022, now going into 2023, sales are actually down 14%. So right there, that just kind of shows you that the market in general just kind of came to a little bit of a halt going into the end of 2022. I would probably say starting around September and October. And, what was some of those main factors? Rates, obviously. Rates changed the affordability for a lot of buyers, which is something to where, it kind of holds a little bit of a place for myself personally, because, listen, I talk to a lot of people. I work with a lot of people, fortunately, and I am passionate about trying to get people into a position that they are most comfortable with. And like that's one of the ongoing things that I always tell people is that, listen, like no matter what, I want you to be comfortable with what we're doing and what's being explained to you, because the last thing that I want is that 80% into the transaction, all of a sudden you don't want to do this anymore. Or even worse, after it closes, you start having a regret on what you did. So I'm always about just providing as much information as I possibly can, probably more than what I even need to provide. So just so my buyers and my sellers, everyone has all of the options that are available. And those conversations became a little bit more difficult going to the end of 2022, because a lot of people that I was working with realized that, okay, we may need to adjust the budget a little bit, and we may need to think about this, and we may need to possibly, rent for another year, whatever the case is. It was a little bit sad, because I know that it was a very big surge to want to be to want to own a home and to be able to get out of like the rental market, because, rents obviously are increasing at crazy rates. So, it's just one of those things that I feel like even with this podcast too, just to be able to keep people informed at all times. So if you are on the buying side, you'll be able to figure out when that best time is going to be for you to make that move forward. So like the climate right now going into 2023 is, it's a little bit unsteady, and it's pretty much the exact same as it was going to the end of 2022. New listings year to date are down about 5%, and I'm sure that's going to change as we go a little bit deeper into the year. But new listings are down a little bit from what they were from last January of 2022. And then also the number, the days on market is actually up 10% year to date. So what's happening? The amount of new properties coming on the market is going down slightly, and the amount of time that they're staying on the market is going up a little bit more significantly. And it still shows that it's a seller's market, but it just basically because the inventory is lower than what the actual demand is. But it also shows that the amount of buyers that these homes are being marketed to, and buyers that are able to buy right now, has dropped from 2022 and obviously from 2021 as well too. So still a seller's market. It's just that you're selling to less people right now. So it's kind of just teetering a little bit in that sense. And as we go through 2023, we'll obviously be able to talk a little bit more and discuss on what happens. And then as far as, the rest of the month, we'll kind of see how things develop. We'll kind of get an idea of where things look like they're kind of going to be going into. As I mentioned, that'll be one thing that I'll probably start with next week, and really diving into a little bit more of the specifics of the Bucks County and Somerset County and Hunterdon County areas and kind of what we're seeing and how the pending homes and all this. I just don't want to just start just spitting out a whole bunch of just random facts and percentages and where things are at, because I feel like that'll be a little bit boring. And maybe it's not. Maybe that's what people want to hear. But in the same sense, I feel like just these types of conversations will be a little bit easier to connect to. So that's really the gist of what I wanted to do for the first podcast. So if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. If you aren't, please subscribe. Obviously, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. So I'm going to be doing, obviously, just the audio for both Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I'll be adding this video version of it to YouTube every Monday, along with a whole bunch of other content that I kind of have planned for 2023. So I never have in the past asked for people to, subscribe, but you know what? I'm putting in the work. It would be great, and I would really appreciate it for anyone to subscribe. If you feel like that you can connect with this information, I would appreciate just, being able to hit that subscribe, the bell. I really don't even know exactly what all those things mean, but I just see them on all the videos. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, whatever the case may be. But do all those things. That would be fantastic. And most importantly, too, leave comments, and if you don't want to comment because you want it to be more private, reach out to me personally. We'll have a conversation, have this open dialogue. And if you are watching the video version of this, you probably realize that there was a little bit of an edit there, which, again, learning process. I just realized that my maximum time for this type of camera and memory card that I have is 20 minutes. So something that I'm going to take in consideration for next week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have anything else that you want me to kind of talk about, if you want to reach out to me, I'd really appreciate it. And I will see you guys next Monday. Happy New Year, and very excited to be able to start this journey for 2023 and just to be able to just do something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time. So thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great week.